That bottle of water on your shelf has words like pure and natural printed right on the front. Independent testing found something very different inside. Today, we are exposing 9 of the most popular bottled water brands sold in America right now. Cross-referencing Consumer Reports testing, FDA recall records, independent laboratory studies, and peer-reviewed research. What we found is worth knowing before you buy another case. Arsenic. Industrial chemicals that accumulate in your body and never fully clear. Up to 240,000 microscopic plastic particles per liter, not always from the water source, but from the bottle itself. These substances do not flush out, they build up over time, and the longer you have been drinking the same brand, the more that matters. We tested 9 brands, ranked from lowest concern to the most serious, then 4 that actually held up under independent scrutiny, so you leave knowing exactly what to reach for instead. Let's start. Number 9. Aquafina, the vending machine brand, the gas station cooler, the hotel lobby water. PepsiCo owns it, and for years the packaging leaned into mountains and clean blues. The kind of visual language that implies the water came from somewhere pristine, somewhere untouched. It did not. Aquafina is sourced from municipal tap water, the same supply connected to your kitchen faucet. In 2007, after sustained pressure from advocacy groups, PepsiCo agreed to add the words "public water source" to Aquafina's label. That quiet addition confirmed what critics had been saying for years. To be fair, Aquafina runs that tap water through a multi-step purification process, including reverse osmosis, and the finished product meets FDA standards. The water is not the primary issue. The problem is the complete picture. Tap water origins, plastic packaging, visual branding built specifically to imply something it is not. On that plastic, a 2024 Columbia University study using advanced laser imaging found that the average liter of commercially bottled water contains approximately 240,000 plastic particles, 10 to 100 times more than earlier research estimated. Most are nanoplastics, small enough to cross cell membranes. This applies to every brand in a PET plastic bottle. But when you stack tap water origins on top of plastic contamination, on top of deliberate visual misdirection, the mountain on the label stops looking like branding. It starts looking like deception. You were paying for something that looks like spring water from an elevated source. It was filtered city tap water in a container shedding plastic into the product. Number 8. Dasani, the Coca-Cola brand. Launched in 1999, built into one of the most widely recognized water brands in the world. Like Aquafina, it starts as municipal tap water processed through reverse osmosis. But Dasani does not stop at filtration. After purification, Coca-Cola adds back a mineral blend, magnesium sulfate, potassium chloride, and sodium chloride. Magnesium sulfate is what they sell as Epsom salt. Potassium chloride is widely used in fertilizers. Sodium chloride is plain table salt, added to drinking water and sold as premium hydration. Consumer backlash eventually grew loud enough that Coca-Cola quietly reduced the salt content in 2024 without announcing it. That is not even the most serious part of the record. In 2004, Coca-Cola launched Dasani in the United Kingdom. Within 5 weeks, every bottle was pulled from every shelf in the country after testing found bromate levels exceeding legal limits. Bromate is classified as a potential carcinogen. Dasani has never returned to UK retail. In a 2024 microplastics analysis testing 7 brands side by side, Dasani produced the highest plastic particle reading in the entire study, a fluorescent contamination signal of 143, the single worst score recorded. Filtered tap water, Epsom salt and fertilizer compound added back in. A full national recall from an entire country. The highest microplastic score in an independent 7-brand study. If someone handed you a glass with those compounds stirred in, you would set it down. Dasani just puts it in a blue bottle and sells it at premium prices. Number 7. Deer Park, the East Coast household brand. The case in the garage. 2 or 3 generations of families who never thought twice about it. Consumer Reports found PFAS, those are forever chemicals, at 1.2 parts per trillion, above the 1 part per trillion threshold independent scientists now recommend. Deer Park also appeared in microplastics litigation tied to the 2018 Orb media study that tested major brands across 9 countries. Nestlé, which owned the brand at the time, said internal testing showed undetectable levels. That gap matters. A company controls what it tests for, when it tests, and whether results ever become public. Internal 0 and independent 1.2 are not always a contradiction. They can reflect entirely different methodologies. Nestlé sold Deer Park to One Rock Capital Partners in 2021 for roughly $4.3 billion. The branding stayed. The source did not change. Brand familiarity built over decades is worth less than a recent independent lab result. PFAS chemicals do not break down in the environment or in the human body. They accumulate in tissue over time and have been linked to thyroid disruption, compromised immune function, and increased cancer risk. Every time you drink Deer Park, you are adding to what is already in your system. Number 6. Poland Spring. On American shelves since 1845, Springs in Maine. A name built on geography and heritage that most people never thought to question. In 2017, a class action lawsuit alleged that Nestlé had been misleading customers because Poland Spring did not meet the FDA's own legal definition of spring water. The plaintiffs claimed it was drawn from groundwater sources that failed to qualify under federal standards, meaning the word spring on the label was legally contestable. The case settled after years in court. Consumer Reports also found the carbonated version testing above 1 part per trillion for PFAS. Nestlé's response was the same as Deer Park. Internal testing showed undetectable levels. Poland Spring is now part of the Blue Triton brand's portfolio. The same company that took on Deer Park. Same trusted name. A legal history and independent testing record that tells a different story than the label always has. The water inside contains chemicals your body cannot eliminate. The name on the label is legally questionable, and the company's internal testing contradicts independent laboratories by a factor of several times over. Number 5. Perrier. This is the prestige one, the European one. The green glass bottle on restaurant tables since 1898. Over a century of brand history that makes people feel confident without ever really thinking about why. Then February 1990 happened. Perrier issued a worldwide recall of approximately 160 million bottles after benzene, a known human carcinogen, turned up in samples tested in the United States. The company initially pointed to a single contaminated filter at its facility in France. Further investigation showed the problem ran deeper than one component. Perrier was off shelves for months. The generation that watched that recall never entirely forgot it. 3 decades later, Consumer Reports placed Perrier among sparkling water brands registering PFAS above 1 part per trillion. Nestlé, which owned Perrier at the time, issued the same response it gave for Deer Park and Poland Spring. Internal testing showed undetectable levels. Trust is earned slowly. Perrier spent a century building it. The 1990 benzene recall spent a significant portion of that account. A recalled product with cancer-causing chemicals. PFAS contamination flagged in independent testing. When your brand has been on shelves for 128 years and you are still fighting recalls and contamination scandals, the problem is not recent. It is systemic. Number 4. Fiji water. This is the premium import. The square bottle, the pink flower on the label, an artesian aquifer on a Pacific island, rainfall filtering through volcanic rock for hundreds of years. The packaging does not just sell water, it sells the idea of somewhere completely untouched. You are not buying a beverage, you are buying a destination. The FDA has documentation that describes something else entirely. Natural Waters of Viti Limited, the company behind Fiji Water, recalled nearly 1.9 million bottles after laboratory testing found manganese contamination and 3 separate types of bacteria in the product. Nearly 2 million bottles of water positioned as among the purest available had to be pulled back from market. Beyond the recall, Fiji was named in a lawsuit filed in January 2024 over microplastic contamination. The brand ships its product approximately 5,500 miles from the Fiji Islands to American store shelves in single-use PET plastic plastic bottles. Plastic degrades, and that degradation accelerates under heat. A bottle moving through sun-exposed shipping containers, warm distribution warehouses, and unrefrigerated delivery trucks has significantly more time to shed particles into the water than a domestically produced product sitting in a shorter supply chain. You are paying a premium for water that crossed the Pacific inside a container, breaking down the entire journey. Bacteria inside, manganese contamination, plastic particles increasing with every mile of transport. That is not what the label suggests, and it is not what people buying Fiji at that price believe they are getting. Number 3. Nestlé Pure Life, one of the best-selling bottled water brands globally and one of the most available in America. Nestlé owns this brand and markets it as premium, but Nestlé is the company that uses 3 liters of water to produce 1 liter of bottled water. That ratio is horrifying. Imagine if you went to the gas station and for every gallon of gas you bought, 3 gallons were wasted in production. That is what Nestlé is doing with water. Nestlé Pure Life claims to be sustainably sourced, but what does that actually mean? The company does not provide clear, independent verification. It is another case of a major corporation using environmental language to sound good, while the actual environmental impact is devastating. But that is not even the point here. The point is what is in the water. Independent testing has flagged Nestlé Pure Life for microplastics. Multiple litigation cases have emerged over contamination, and the brand offers no transparency into what independent laboratories have found when they test it. It is just marketed, distributed, and assumed to be clean. Nestlé is betting you never go looking. Number 2. Evian, the poster child for premium bottled water. Evian markets itself as pristine water from the French Alps, filtered through natural layers, infused with minerals from nature. The marketing is beautiful. The website shows mountains and pristine springs. The bottles are sleek and sophisticated, and the label says pure. That is why people buy it. That is why they pay premium prices for it. But here is what independent testing has revealed. A 2024 study found Evian contains microplastics at detectable levels. The brand uses PET plastic bottles. Every single one sheds particles into the water. Those particles, up to 240,000 per liter in some measurements, go directly into your body when you drink it. More critically, Evian has faced regulatory scrutiny over claims of purity that do not match independent test results. The water inside meets FDA standards, but FDA standards are baseline regulations, not gold standard purity. They are what the government considers minimally acceptable. Evian is marketed as premium and pure. Independent testing shows microplastic contamination and chemical residues that exceed what independent scientists recommend you should be drinking regularly. You are paying premium prices for water with known plastic particle contamination, placed in bottles that guarantee the contamination will increase over time. Evian is beautiful marketing backed by degrading plastic. Number 1. Starkey Pure Spring Water. This is the Whole Foods one. Glass bottle, made by Mother Nature, on the label. Launched in 2015, sold in Whole Foods locations across the country and through Amazon. When it debuted, Whole Foods' own chief operating officer publicly described it as amazingly pristine water that naturally flows from a spring in Idaho. The people buying Starkey were not shopping carelessly. They were shopping at Whole Foods, which is itself a deliberate act. That store has spent decades building an identity anchored in health, transparency, and a sourcing standard conventional grocery retail does not match. When a product carries the Whole Foods name, a significant number of shoppers make a reasonable assumption that someone inside that organization verified the sourcing, reviewed the testing, and confirmed the product deserved to be on that shelf. They paid a premium on exactly that assumption. That assumption was wrong. Consumer Reports tested dozens of bottled water brands. Starkey contained arsenic at levels ranging from 9.49 to 9.56 parts per billion. At minimum, 3 times higher than every other brand in the study. A 2019 sample came back at 10.1 parts per billion. The federal regulatory limit is 10. That sample exceeded it. This was not a surprise to the company. In late 2016, the FDA notified Whole Foods that Florida's bottled water regulator had found arsenic in Starkey at 11.7 parts per billion, above the legal threshold. Weeks later, a second round of testing returned 12 parts per billion. Whole Foods recalled more than 2,000 cases and then kept the brand on the shelf. Out of 130 bottled water products tested by Consumer Reports, Starkey recorded the highest arsenic content of any brand still available for purchase. Here is the detail that makes the full picture land. In New Jersey and New Hampshire, tap water is regulated at an arsenic limit of 5 parts per billion. At the levels found in Starkey, that water would not pass the legal standard required to come out of a household faucet in those states. It would fail the test for your kitchen sink, but packaged in a glass bottle with "Made by Mother Nature" on the label, it was sitting on the shelves of a store built entirely on the promise of selling you something better. Arsenic is a poison. Even at low levels, it accumulates in your body over time. Starkey sold arsenic at 3 times the legal limit. That is number 1 on the avoid list. You have been buying these brands for years. The bottles have been in your refrigerator, at your desk, in your gym bag, and independent laboratories have been finding things inside them that the brands never mention. PFAS, forever chemicals that accumulate in your bloodstream. Arsenic, a known poison. Bacteria that require recalls. Microplastics that cross cell membranes. Manganese and other heavy metals. These are not theoretical concerns. These are measured contaminants in products you can buy right now at any grocery store. The regulatory framework allows these brands to sell water that meets FDA minimum standards, while independent scientists have moved their recommendations significantly higher. The brands know this. They follow the letter of the law, which was written in the 1970s, while ignoring what modern science has discovered about what those contaminants actually do to your body. And the marketing language was designed to hold your attention on the front of the bottle, while the evidence sits quietly on the back in fine print that most people never read. That system has been running for decades, and the brands inside it have been counting on you never going looking. Most people do not. Those brands are built on that assumption. Now you know what to avoid. Here is what actually holds up under independent scrutiny. Better option number 4, Essentia. This is the purified everyday option, the one you can find in most grocery stores without going out of your way. Essentia runs its water through a 3-stage purification sequence: reverse osmosis, then microfiltration, then ultraviolet light treatment. Each stage removes a different category of contaminant. Together, they strip out nearly everything: PFAS, heavy metals, biological material that survives simpler processes. After purification, trace electrolytes are added back, and the water is ionized to a pH of 9.5. Essentia publishes its water quality reports and participates in third-party testing. No recalls on record, no class action lawsuits, no PFAS flags in independent testing. Purified water will not carry the natural mineral complexity of a spring source, but it offers something different and verifiable: a documented picture of exactly what is in the bottle and what is not. For everyday drinking at standard grocery store prices, it is one of the most consistent and transparent options available. Number 3, Voss. This is the Norwegian artesian one. Sourced from an aquifer in southern Norway beneath natural formations of rock and sand that filter the water before it ever surfaces. The surrounding region has minimal industrial history, and that matters more than it sounds. Industrial contamination near a water source does not stay in one place. It moves through groundwater over time. Voss has offered glass bottles since launch, and glass remains its defining format. No plastic degradation, no microplastic shedding from the container, no PET contamination building up during storage or transit. The water itself is notably low in sodium and total dissolved solids, producing a clean, neutral taste without heavy mineral interference. Independent testing shows PFAS at non-detectable levels, lead at non-detectable levels, arsenic at non-detectable levels. When you run the same tests that flagged every brand on the avoid list, Voss comes back clean. Voss costs more than most options in the water aisle. Glass is heavier, which means higher shipping weight and a larger carbon cost per bottle. Those are real considerations if they matter to your decision. But for a consumer whose primary question is what the water contains and what the container is doing to it, Voss is one of the very few widely distributed brands where the packaging and the purity claim are telling the same story. Number 2, San Pellegrino. This is the restaurant table one, the green glass bottle, sourced from natural springs near Bergamo in the Italian Alps. in continuous operation since 1899. The calcium, magnesium, and sulfate in San Pellegrino came through underground limestone, deposited by geology, not added through a manufacturing step. In a 2018 study testing 259 bottled water brands for microplastic contamination, San Pellegrino recorded the lowest particle counts of any brand examined. In the most contaminated San Pellegrino bottle tested, researchers found 74 microplastic particles per liter. Some brands in the same study came back above 1,000. Part of that difference comes directly from the glass bottle format. Glass does not degrade into the product. It does not shed particles. It is a physical barrier that no plastic bottle can replicate. Consumer Reports testing also found San Pellegrino's sparkling water coming in below the 1 part per trillion PFAS threshold that independent scientists now recommend. Over 125 years of documented sourcing and a consistent record in independent contamination studies. That track record is actually verifiable, and that matters. When a brand has been operating for 125 years and independent laboratories still find it clean, that is not marketing. That is consistency. Number 1. Icelandic Glacial. This is the one that held up under every single measure applied across this entire list. Sourced from the Ölfus Spring in Iceland, the water begins as rainfall that filters through ancient lava rock for decades before reaching the aquifer below. Not days, not weeks, decades. By the time it is collected, the water has been processed by geology over years. It is bottled at the spring without chemical treatment, without additives, and without processing beyond bottling itself. Official testing shows arsenic at non-detectable levels, lead at non-detectable levels, PFAS at non-detectable levels. Take every major contamination category that defined the worst brands on the avoid list, and Icelandic Glacial comes back below the threshold of detection on every one. The production facility is inspected regularly by the Icelandic Public Health Authority, a government body with legal authority and no financial relationship to the brand. The company runs daily on-site laboratory testing, calibrated to standards that exceed what the FDA, the World Health Organization, and the NSF require. The mineral profile is naturally alkaline at pH 8.4, with calcium at 32 milligrams per liter and magnesium at approximately 6.5, both present because of the volcanic geology of the source region, not reintroduced after purification. Icelandic Glacial is available in glass bottles, which closes the final question entirely. No plastic degradation, no microplastic shedding from the container into the water, no recalls in the brand's documented history, no class action litigation, no PFAS detections in independent testing, no industrial contamination anywhere near the source. When a company opens its doors to government inspectors on any given day, runs daily lab checks against international standards, publishes those results, and offers glass as the container, and still comes back clean across every category, that is not a marketing position. That is just what the product actually is. Every brand on the avoid list found the space the regulatory framework allowed and built a profitable product inside it. The marketing language was written to hold your attention on the front of the bottle, while the evidence sat quietly on the back in fine print that most people never read. That system has been running for decades, and the brands inside it have been counting on you never going looking. Before you buy any bottled water, look for published third-party quality reports, not internal company documents, not press releases, not statements made in response to a journalist. Independent laboratory results from organizations with no financial stake in the outcome. And when glass is available, choose it. The bottle is not separate from the product. In too many cases on this list, the bottle is part of the problem. You have been buying these brands for years. Now you know what you were actually buying and exactly what to reach for instead. If this video helped you understand what is actually in the water you drink, hit that subscribe button. We investigate brands across every category to show you what companies do not want you to know. See you in the next one.